I don't know. Drugs are out, sex is out, politics are out. Everything is on hold. I mean, we definitely need something new. I just keep waiting for some new voice to come out of somewhere and just say, hey. Business. I got my wild cherry Diet Pepsi, and I got my blackjack gum here, and I got that feeling. Yeah, that familiar feeling that something rank is going down out there.
And if you can't believe it, it's a Friday once again.
Let's gamble.
Las Vegas, paradise of sin wrapped in neon, a cathedral of chrome and counterfeit charm, a city that swallows saints and spews out sinners still grinning for more. Here lurches a lout in a late life limbo, a Palook past his prime, fueled by gin spite and an iron pyrite fantasy that one last gamble can turn back the clock on decades squandered. Hemingway's hangover shakes hands with Bukowski's busted lip, while Odysseus staggers not towards Ithaca, but into the smoke choke boxing ring of memory, regret, and mobbed up math that always results in a net zero gang. This is the American carnival that Hunter S. Thompson described as what Saturday nights would be like if the Germans would have won the war, minus the pressed uniforms. Tonight, chance is king, hope is false, and the only prize for perseverance is another spin at the wheel. Welcome to the gutter. Everyone ends up here eventually. It is only a matter of time. JP has obviously made some interesting choices since the last time we had an episode. Ronnie, how are you doing tonight?
Doing right. I'm doing all right, man. I had a pretty good evening and a pretty cool moment earlier. I was doing an event, as I do, moving books, and I had a woman come up to my table with her friend, and she said that she saw my book at the coffee shop. It was a reader copy, so anybody could pick it up, and she read Eudaimonia #1 from cover to cover, and she had to get it. And she got book 1, she got book 2, and she told her friends, like, you like music, you're gonna love this, and got her friend to buy a copy. And I was checking her out, and I was like, do you want me to sign these? And she goes, wait, do you make them? And it was just kind of a cool, it was a cool little moment. I guess she thought that I don't know what she thought I did.
You were just the local distributor for this amazing product.
Yeah, it was a cool moment. It was nice to find a reader and a fan and sign some books and sell some along the way.
Do you now sign all of your books, no matter who comes up to you, as to Rhonda?
No, but I do ask every buyer if they want a signature or not, because I don't want to be presumptuous.
Very good, very good. Well, that's awesome, man. That's a good story. That's the kind of thing that makes it real, and that's beyond, for an independent creator, beyond the YouTube scene, beyond the cyberspace existence that we all consider ourselves friends. And you like to think that you know everybody that's backing you in some way, shape, or form. That's the real thing, man. When you get into that meat space and you get somebody completely cold coming up to your table and talking like that, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I'm also looking forward to when Kayla sees my new look.
I'm sure she's waiting with bated breath, for sure. Let's check in with the chat and see who we have joining us tonight before we move into the topic of tonight's show. Einbrecht was first. He says, I'll be there, provided my cantankerous old arse doesn't get distracted. Indeed. And he has shown up in the chat, so he did stick around. Citizen Ronan, this got me earlier. I'm going to try to read it as best I can with holding my composure together. She was a chatty dame with a laugh like an oversexed hyena. She told me that she was fun and always ready to gamble. But Ronnie was more than I bargained for, like all things in the gutter. So very good, Ronan. Thank you. Awesome One has joined us. And then he does a burp back. And then, of course, Snugs. Snugs is running the Summer of Snugs. Go to summerofsnugs.com, and there's numerous links for a bunch of great books that both Snuggy and I are really looking forward to. Yesterday, the Zaid brothers launched their latest Western, so make sure you go to Summer of Snugs, link over to that, or just go to zaidcomics.com and check that out. Also, make sure you go check out Frog G. And after you've checked out those two, if you haven't already, we've been harping on this for a while. Eudaimonia #3, Goodbye, is available in demand on IndieGoGo still. And Noirlum 2 has a campaign, if you'd like a signed copy, over on Fund My Comic, that are both penned by JP himself, who's right here with us. And if you'd just like a copy of Noirlum 2, listen, and you don't want a signed copy, you can just go to barnesandnoble.com or your pretty much your largest bookseller in your region. Isn't that correct, JP?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, type in Noirlum 2 and order it direct from there. I don't know if does it help you more if you show up at the storefront and order it at the store versus the website? Does that matter at all through your publisher?
I don't think so, but I mean, don't leave the house. Well, why would you
Oh,
want
okay.
to do that?
Well, occasionally it's good to get out there, meet
Mm,
some people.
mm, not
No,
in a Barnes and Noble, Jesus.
yeah, it's always the Barnes and Noble aspect of things. I always we're getting into Wednesday show territory, but it's
Yeah,
always
there's like a
interesting.
50-50 shot you'll run into a furry.
Yeah, well, and dude, it's the cashiers have gotten weird, um, really weird. In any case, moving on. Henry Bemis has joined us. Always good to see Mr. Bemis. What is up? What is up, Mr. Bemis? Always a pleasure. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. And there's Einbreck. Knew he was around here somewhere. He says, "Hey, you chat," and hail. I'm assuming panel. So good job, sir. And scrolling down, we've got Henry Bemis calling it out. Dead Kennedys. Dead Kennedys. Yes, Dead Kennedys indeed is the lead-in tonight. It's always a challenge trying to find a song that hits the vibe that I want to flow with the show, but I thought Dead Kennedys would work. And Henry Bemis says, I find myself strangely attracted to JP's avatar. And her name is Ronnie. There you go. Yeah, fan. Laughed like an oversexed hyena. I was already attracted to her, but now she might be my soulmate, says Henry Bemis. And Henry Bemis, he went to a convention in Portland today. I've had my full of furries. Oh man, I can only imagine. And awesome one says Racist Fridays. Well, that's why everybody tunes in, right? Because of our comic book review racism, I guess. Yeah. But in any case, man, from a
Someone is telling you where he had dinner.
oh,
Only
okay. He went to a TGI Racist Fridays. Is what
yeah,
you're saying.
he misspelled TGI horribly.
Gotcha. Well, so tonight's episode is the culmination of pretty much the month of August, as far as how I structure these things out. We started off with a standalone Batman story from the pages of Legends of the Dark Knight. We went to a painted Western in the Enfield Gang Massacre, then to Charlemagne the God's Illuminati, and finally to the contrast of Rise of the Trigun Empire to Howard Chaykin's FU to the publishing scene in Black Kiss. All 5 of those books were praised and critiqued. And tonight, I hope, my goal is that you will look at the book tonight and find those qualities, both all the positives and all the negatives, but the negatives will be reversed. I think this book is a huge win, combined together by the creator who gets it in a way that really few creators really do and executes at an extremely high level. And the book we will be talking about was released from October of 2017 through March of 2018. That's 6 issues were released in 6 months. Yes, 6 issues in 6 months. I know there's a lot of people shocked out there, but it's a personal story for the creator. It's the Dan Panosian was the writer, the colorist, and the inker, the penciler. He did everything on this, other than the lettering. And it's a personal story for him because he grew up around the world that this comic is set in, which is those that exist just on the edges of the fringes of normal society. Gamblers, fighters, hustlers, the darker corners of the entertainment world. That's where this stems from. This is a very personal story for Dan, and it's a home run, in my opinion. If you go to the description of this show, you will find an affiliate link to Amazon for the trade paperback, which I think is like it's less than $20. If you wanted to get the individual issues for this, they are very easily acquirable. They're about $2 to $3 a piece. So we are in the territory where if you have the patience, you can get all 6 issues for cheaper than you can get the trade in most places. Which is a kind of a rarity, but it's still a semi-modern book. There's not a whole lot of demand out for this one. It got really, really good reviews, but it isn't one that seems to have much resonance beyond its existing. Now, Panosian also has, I think, a Punisher series coming out with Marvel soon. That might change. I don't anticipate it based off of how that series looks. I don't think it's going to really break down the fences of people scrolling through Panosian's background and backwork and buying up a bunch of issues. But that's always out there. So to keep that in consideration. But I think you're going to be very pleased with this. From a 10,000 foot view, JP, what was your take? I mean, considering the last 5 books that we've reviewed here on the show, how did this
Well,
compare?
I didn't know that we had a working oeuvre of books, but
Well, I do
um,
that every month. It's just I happen to this month be mentioning it. So,
I know, but I don't pay attention. So my 10,000 foot view is this is okay. It's pretty good. Um, Normally, when I am complaining about a comic, I'm sending you a lot of images of bad writing. I didn't think there was any bad writing. In fact, I think I really appreciated that the book, we'll get to it later, but it gets into the logistics of boxing when covering boxing, and I appreciate that it seemed to have been crafted by somebody who knows something about it. Um, I just wasn't all that keen on the actual story, but we'll get into the finer details of that later.
gotcha. And I do think that's a fair criticism. I think this is a story. I think it's a very personal story for Dan, and I think it really only, if this makes sense, and I think this might make sense as we talk more about the book as we go through it. I think it's a book that really only hits hard for anybody that was a boxing fan or around boxing.
Hmm.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
and I mean, not only like I mentioned before the logistics of it, but not only is that handled well, but the action of boxing. You know what I mean? Like you can tell that it comes from a place of a deep appreciation.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. That does come across. And greetings to Kayla. She has shown up. And I haven't seen her react yet to your yeah, I'm telling mean people you should all be scared. She's the handsomest woman and is strong. There you
Mm.
go. And
Oh,
scrolling
sorry.
down.
Also, one more thing that I wanted to make note of with this book is the other thing I appreciated is how it clearly captures prime Vegas. You know what I mean? Like the slot machines still have handles, and the blackjacks, people are still given actual cards. It's not where everything is electronic, which is one of the saddest downgrades in all of human history.
And you bring up a very valid point that needs to, and it's a good call, man. Thank you for talking about that, because everything about this book is a little bit of a throwback. Even though it's from 2017, the Vegas that exists in this book is not the 2017 Vegas. It's the Vegas that existed just beyond 2017 in the past, the where Vegas was modernizing, but it hadn't fully caught up with the times yet. And I think that adds to the aura of this. I think it's just enough nostalgic that it feeds into that almost Martin Scorsese Casino era of Vegas rather than what Vegas has become today.
Hmm.
And it's not the tourism Vegas, it's that blend of when it was shifting away from an obvious source of sleaze and corruption into something that was semi-presentable. I think it slides in neatly as a bookend right at the front end of that. But Kayla's going to tag Dan Panosian in on the post. Well, thank you. That'd be awesome. He's a hell of an artist. We praised his work on a number of books. Canary being I think the last one that we reviewed that he did, and he's a phenomenal artist. He's one of my favorite current fully functional artists. And I think this is an absolute home run of a book. It was put out by Skybound. I don't hold that against them. I'm not a Kirkman fan. I'm not really usually a fan of stuff that came out of Skybound, but this is Dan Panosian himself. He was again the artist, the writer, the story creator. He did just about everything other than the lettering and the editing on this. The lettering on this was done by Pat Brasau, who is this gentleman right here, comic book veteran, done a number of books. He's an artist in his own right as well. And this is the cover of the trade. You can get the trade again at the link in the description below. I'd encourage you to buy the floppies. You can find all 6 copies of the floppies much cheaper than you can the trade. If you dig just a little bit, if you just want convenience, get the trade. With that being said, what were your thoughts on the covers, JP? Because this book does something that's a little bit different with the 1/3, 2/3 of the cover orientation.
I mean, it reminds me almost of like a Penguin House cover, like an actual proper piece of literature. So I think it's bold.
All right. Anything about the front matter? Did that resonate
Um,
with you, or is that just me?
no, that's always just you.
Okay. So one of the things I really love is in all 6 of these issues, there is a primary color. Well, not a primary color, but there's a standard color that's associated with the cover. That color is then carried over into the front matter of that particular issue. So cover 1 is red. So when you open it up, the front matter's red. And it's a nice contrast. This page really doesn't change that much, but the color does. It changes in accordance with the issue. It's a really nice touch. It's the same thing. One of the things that I've always praised. If you go over to Well Read Reviews channel and you listen to my review on one of the Godlike books, it's the same thing I talk a lot. Not Godlike, Graveyard Shift by John Malin and Mark Polton. It's one of the things I compliment on that. I really like the simplified cover that the color orients with the individual edition or the individual issue. I think that's something that's sorely lacking. It's a very, very simple thing that can be done, and it makes it easily identifiable for which issue is number 1. Well, it's not just 1, it's red, and it's 2 is blue, and so on. I think that's a really easy, striking marketing thing that you can do on a super simple level that really, really works, and I think it works here. I also want to compliment the back cover work for the rating. It's just a really, really simple pencil sketch with a little bit of ink and color. Just really, really nice. And JP, I know you had a little bit of a critique on this, that you felt the plaid was just kind of layered over the top.
Well, I mean, it wasn't so much a critique. I was curious how you felt about it because you're more on the integrity of art side of things.
Well, this book is done in there's I don't really know how to describe this. Panosian's journey through comic bookdom is interesting because I mean he came into comics kind of in the late 80s. He was one of Marvel's first quote unquote image style guys. And then he jumped over to Extreme Studios, and then he was at Extreme for a little while, and then he jumped out and he did what a lot of guys do, and he drifted over to advertising and illustration. And then he jumped back. And when he jumped back, his style had changed in just a perfect way. And it's not like he is Jim Steranko, but his style brings the same energy to a page layout that Steranko's does when he's firing on all cylinders. And he's firing on all cylinders in this series. You can tell there's passion, and you can tell that there's energy behind it. You can tell that he's invested in this story. And I think we're just going to dive right in. Unless you had anything else to say, we'll start looking at some pages.
Well, I did have one question because I gave this a cursory one-time read-through. Why is the title of the series Slots?
Just Vegas. This is what I summarize.
Okay, all right.
I think
didn't,
if you know, I think
typically,
I think Pugilist would probably be a better title, but Pugilist
something
is
boxing
kind of
related, or maybe a word that exists in both the gambling and boxing world.
yeah, I can see that. And I think you're right. I don't think the slots is the greatest analogy for it, other than the one consistency is the main character is always rolling the dice / pulling the lever and giving chance. He's throwing it up to chance. That's the one consistent factor. I don't think that metaphor is really carried across very well. So I do think your point's valid.
Okay.
I will say, again, this is a full recommend by me before we start going through, because I do have some critiques as we go through some of the pages, as is often the case here on the Gutter. What's your take? Do you think is it a full recommend, partial recommend, not a recommend, dog shit? Are we in, Void Indigo territory?
I think that it is right down the center lane. Take it or leave it.
There you go. And Citizen Ronan, it says it's because he loves to gamble. There you go. And slots are a gamble. You lose more than you win. And there you go. But yeah, let's just jump right in and start looking at some pages. So right away, boom, we get this great introduction to the character. You're jumping into the story. And I love this. I love everything about this because they're immediately establishing what kind of a person the primary character is. They're establishing who Stan is. And his discourse with the waitress, and number one, we're going with a stack 4 right off the bat. So you kind of get an idea where he's going with the art on this, with the stack 4. But as we move in, we do the stack. We split that top panel, and again, that goes to metric and meter, which we talk about a lot. It's rhyme, metric, meter. It's the song. It's you're maintaining rhythm, but the beat work works really well. We're maintaining flow, and then again, we're adding a panel. We go to a 5 stack or a 6 stack, and there's a lot of energy here, even though not much is really going on. We don't have a whole lot of dialogue, but we've established who he is. He skips out on the bill after being extraordinarily flirtatious with the waitress. So we establish he's a grifter, right? What were any thoughts on that? Because I thought you'd kind of key in on some aspects of the dialogue in these first 3 pages.
No, because I was way more. I mean, you know me, and you know how much I love a good diner scene, and it is a perfect representation of what we're headed towards in Vegas, where it's that relic of the past that is so perfect in Americana, and it slipped through our fingers when we weren't looking. So opening the book at a stainless steel truck stop diner is just too perfect.
Completely agree. And then we go
Oh,
from
sorry.
that.
Wait, real quick though. My one complaint is there needs to be a diner coffee cup, no saucer. It needs to be taller and no saucer.
No saucer?
No.
I have never been to a diner that didn't have a saucer.
No, come on, man.
What? I'm serious.
No, it's a mug.
It's
just a mug.
You always get the earthenware coffee cup that's like 10 ounces. It's just a little annoyingly too small that they're constantly filling it up, and it's always got a saucer. It's usually like the earthenware shit with the double green line around it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. That reminds me more of like a Denny's or like a Dutch smorgasbord.
No, man, that's every diner I've never gotten a cup of coffee at a diner. I'll get a cup of coffee at a Waffle House, and I don't get a saucer.
Oh man, but when they bring you the HODL, so you can just pour your own refills.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Doesn't get much
Waffle
better
House,
than that.
But now we're drifting away from diner.
Yeah.
You're drifting into territory where you feel like you got to throw down. After you pay your check just because it's expected. So. But yeah, so we move into this and we get the introduction into chapter 1. I thought these first 4 pages, the art is fantastic, excellent layout choices, good characterization. In 4 pages, we've already established who our character is. There are books of like Batman. I thought was a perfect example of this when we looked at Clay from Legends of the Dark Knight. In 4 pages, I think Panosian's already done more than that was done in those 2 books to establish our primary character. Even though in Batman, you already have the cultural knowledge of who Batman is. Here, we already know a shit ton about Stan. We've already established his character.
And establishing a definitive color palette, and when solid primary colors stand out, it's important. So like there's red all over this page, but the only true red is the car and the shirt.
Yep. But I think you keyed in on something else there that I really like about this book, which is the color palette. The color palette in this is so smartly executed in that there is every time the color palette shifts, you almost don't even need to have a time shift narration bubble. It's obvious that we're shifting into a different scene, shifting into a different sequence, or we're shifting into a different time. Just by the color palette, it's executed so perfectly. It's an absolute home run. And moving a little bit forward into the book, we see that again here. We're still maintaining the same color palette, and again, this is hats off to Panosian. If you're gonna make that cigarette pack anything, you're gonna make it a Lucky Strike.
That was another thing I wanted to ask you about. Do you know about? I had this thought so many times when reading this, because there's Lucky Strike, Hendrix, Jack Daniels. There's another gin that it escapes me which one it is. Like, it's not Bombay, but it's one of those. What is the legality with just using brand names and logos in comics?
I have no idea, but I love the fact that it's Lucky Strike, because that, I mean, I went from Camel to American Spirit to Lucky Strike, and then I quit smoking. Well, I'm on and off the wagon lately, depending on
Yeah.
stress levels. But
And if you're in the audience, kids, make sure you're smoking.
yeah, and if you're gonna smoke, I mean, just smoke coffin nails. Let's commit or piss off. Like either do one or the other. Don't do the ultralight shit. Either smoke unfiltered or don't smoke.
Yeah. Chekhov's gun, by the way.
Yes, we do have a little bit of Chekhov's gun action here, and then later we're moving into this, and this is we're moving into the city. We're moving into the seat of sin, into the seat of where bad decisions happen, and we've got this beautiful. Now we're wrapped in darkness, because if you're gonna do Vegas, you got to do Vegas at night, because it's illuminated. It's the beacon in the city. It is the Tower of Barad-dûr in the middle of the desert. And I love this 2-page spread right along with the chapter title. Perfectly executed, excellent ink work, great detail, absolutely wonderful 2-page spread.
Yeah, and another thing it does is I don't think at any point in this entire series does anybody refer to a real casino, like one of the bigger ones. Like nobody's talking about like the Bellagio, the Borgata.
No,
everything
in this
all
book
operates in the economy of the lower tier casinos.
Exactly. This is the lower echelon of the social strata. This is the guy that says, "Hey, I bet you I can't put $10 worth of quarters on their side," and just drops a roll of quarters out of his pocket, puts it on its side, and says, "There you go," and takes your money. It's the low end grift game. These aren't high end con guys. It's not $1 million jobs. It's not even $100,000 jobs. These guys are grifting for a couple $100 at a time.
Yeah, we're beneath circus level.
Right. It's the lower echelon. It's on the fringes of society, and that's what Panosian was experienced with, and that's what he brought forth. And it's only added to by the skullduggery that goes on within, having boxing as a secondary theme here, because and I think maybe more so from our generation, more so than modern generations, and that's also played with in this book, as we'll get to. But boxing in and of itself, if you're in your late 30s to early 40s, I think you view it as corrupt just because we grew up with Don King and the corruption of the heavyweight system, that there was always big money involved and nothing ever seemed legit. It always seemed like there was somebody that was throwing a fight, or the decision was off. And I think that plays into it. I think he's playing with those cultural norms of that aspect of it. And I think it's really, really good as we get into this story. But to move on a little bit into the pages, I want to comment on this. We get these multiple chapters, and these chapter titles are absolutely brilliant because we get nice delineated moments. Now, right above this chapter title, though, I do have, and this is a reoccurring complaint I have with Panosian's page layouts, which for the most part are brilliant, but he does do the repetitive portrait thing, which this needs to just go the way of the fucking dodo. He is excellent in layouts. He executes his page layouts beautifully. He doesn't waste white space too often. When white space is used, it's used for a reason, and it usually has a tint to it, so it's not stark. But that repetitive face shit, oh my God, like whoever, like that needs to be beaten out of somebody with a 2x4, and it needs to go away yesterday.
I mean, even the panel above it, it's the same angle of the same vehicle.
I don't have a problem with the panel above it because it's showing a cityscape and it implies a little bit of like motion. It's just static images of people's faces don't work for me anymore. It was interesting the first time I saw it, and the next time I saw it, I wanted to gouge somebody's eyes out with the claw side of a fucking claw hammer. It doesn't, just stop, please. It's over. Let it go. And then issue 1 ends, and then we go into issue 2, and we get again that same stylized great. This is a little bit more of almost like a 2-fist, 3-fist split. It's not the same metric that we used on the issue 1. And again, we got the color blue. The front matter flows into that. I like that very much. excellently done. And then we go into some background. And when we're going into the background and the flashback sequences, we're going into a very sepia-toned, dull kind of tan background flashback. Did you take the impression that these were all of them were photographs, or did you take it into that this is just recollections and memory, and it's doing the sepia tone just to delineate the time difference?
I made a mental note to ask you what you thought about this, because I think I struggle with it because the real world is kind of sepia tone. You know what I mean? And I didn't think it was the best choice. But that being said, in my books, I do the whole black and white thing. So if you wanted to knock me for that, that would be fine too.
There you go. And awesome one is laughing. He's saying, was going to say all this would be mad at the trailer, and hence why this stream never turns on the camera so we can see static avatars. There you go. Because it's not about us. It's about the book.
There was a moment that we glossed over that I also wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
But it was when we first meet the main character's trainer, and it kind of bugged me because the first few panels, the only we read what he said, but we don't know who it is, and then he enters the frame, but we've never seen that character before, and it just seemed to me to be a kind of clumsy introduction.
Okay. What's the just so you're just talking about the introduction of the character?
Yeah, it's like we're basically introduced to them by the words that the character is saying, but we have no idea who they are, and then the book introduces the character.
I got you. As opposed to everybody else that he introduces, which is there's an introduction, we see the character, and then you get the explanation of what the prior relationship is.
Well, generally in a visual medium, you would want to look first before you hear, or at least hear in your mind when you're reading, so know who it is.
I think that's a valid point. It would be interesting to hear Panosian'S thoughts on why he chose to only do that with the creator or with the trainer. And then we continue that, and again, here again we have that very static plaid layout that you talked about. We briefly mentioned over the shirt. Again, I think this is because these are memories; they're very two-dimensional, and that's the intent. There's not a whole the depth that you feel in the flashback imagery isn't the same as the depth that you feel in the modern imagery. And I think that's really executed and delineated perfectly by the bottom panel, where the hood of that car goes on forever into that vanishing point off to the corner. And then you see the characters. Whereas up above, everything just feels a little flat.
But you mean that in a good way or bad way?
No, I mean that in a good way. It's
Got it.
The memories.
Because
I think Kayla mentioned
memory
in the chat,
is
the memory in the picture of the mind is static moments, right? Memory is not dynamic, it's static. So you're remembering moments, and there might be a little bit of action about that moment, but it's primarily just the moment. Thus deja vu when you're in the moment. You don't get deja vu for seconds. It's just an instant. That's how memory is formed. Here, memory is two-dimensional, but the reality, the now is three, and thus the long hood of the car. Which, granted, the car does have a long hood, but he could have picked that angle he could have picked a different angle. He didn't. He picked that angle. And so you go from these flat two-dimensional imagery with that, even like again, you said you keyed it on the plaid, and then we're going to go down to the final panel, and we're bringing us back into reality. Oop, there goes gravity, and boom, we've got three dimensions again. And then we move later into the book into some of the action sequences, and I really both like this and hate this. And
Beefeaters, sorry, that's what it was. I was saying before there was another gin. Hendrix makes an appearance, and now we get Beefeaters.
Gotcha. So I really like this, and I have issues. And my issue with it is the color palette. It's the black gutter lines serve for delineating panel structure, but there is so much flesh in this panel that it all kind of just blends together, and it's a miss. It's a well-drawn page, panel to panel, but as a composition, doesn't work. Like it
Okay.
needed something else to break it up, because if you look at her hands in panel 1 and then she's pouring it in panel 2 and then she's drinking in panel 3, it just looks like it's one continuous image of juxtaposed flesh monster.
Okay, now here's why none of what you said matter, because god damn, can this guy ever draw glass?
Oh no, panel 4 almost saves the page.
But now here's my question.
Split image, because then you've got also the split image is her distorted face in the glass a representation that she is a conflicted character, or is it just a glass?
Now here's my question. I made another mental note of this. Okay, so Jin is clear, right? But it looks like she is maybe drinking something brown, and I can't think of anything that color that would mix with Jin. Am I looking into the color too much?
I think so.
Or
But
is
again,
it
I
an
think that's
enforcement of her being like so low class, low down that she mixes something dark with Jin?
it also could be that. And again, that'd be a really good question for the artist on this. I think it's just a color palette choice. I think he was
Okay.
going for something here, and I don't think it works 100%.
Mm.
We get our introduction to the main character's son but again, panels 1, 2, and 3 bother me because of the color palette, and there's just too much flesh on the page. Otherwise, panel 4 is beautiful. Panel 4 sells the page, and to a degree as well, panel 5, with the particular angle that he's putting that camera with, the bottom of the bottle breaking the gutter line and extending up over her breast is just it's a nice choice, and I'm sure there's a little bit of a metaphor there. But I really liked that. But him wearing like the black wife beater that then just blends into the gutter line doesn't help the bottom corner of the page either. It's just you could pick a little bit of a shade differential and do a lot more here, I think, than what we've got. I think it's
Well, it
just
looks
a
like he
little,
did that in the fourth panel.
and that's what's the most irritating, right? Is in the panel that gravitates your eye the most, it has that extenuation done, but panels 1, 2, 3, and then 5, 6, and 7 don't. And I think just a little bit more work there would have made this page really sing a lot more than it does, which is
Yeah,
a
like
shame.
maybe take panel 1 and zoom in even more, so you're just getting the bottle and the hand opening it, so it doesn't look like what you said, like a monster.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of great choices you could have made. I think the dialogue could have been broken up a little bit as well. And the thing, again, frustrating here, because he's executing at such a high level. You go a couple pages later and he's executing the then and the now interspersed in a beautiful format. This is a great page. And a lot of times I'll talk about like execution of white space, and just there's too much white on the page. You're not maximizing the utilization of the page. There is a ton of black between inset panel 1, panel 2, and panel 3 right there in the corner. But it doesn't matter because it works with the context of the page, because the bottom of the page, it draws you down into it. And it's an excellent use. If that was to be left white, it wouldn't have the effect that black does, because Panosian's understanding what he's trying to do and where he's trying to draw the eye, and that the black is less distracting in a page like this than white would have been. And that he's doing that, and that he's aware of that, because the dialogue narrative bubble for panel 1, that inset panel 1, is bridging the gutter line into that black. But then if you look at panel 3, he's regressing all the dialogue down into that inset panel, and he's keeping it contained. He wants that black there as a pause moment, that the impact of the dialogue matters, and you pause and then hit. And it's a beautiful understanding of it. It really works in the context of the book, but I don't think it would work if you didn't have the page structured this way, if that makes sense. If you don't take that first narrative bubble and drop it down to break that gutter line, this black space would be an annoyance. It would really, really bug me. But he's making the blank space dynamic by using it as an inherent pause in your eye line.
I think my one issue with this page is in the very last panel, him in the background sitting up in bed reacting. I think it's just a stronger image if it's just her.
Just her without the table?
No, I mean, no, not suspended in gravity. I mean,
No,
him
like
being there.
just her with the like just her like
Yeah.
head on the table, not the extenuating rest of the table structure. Everything is placed on it.
No, I'm okay with that too. I just wish that he wasn't in the background reacting. Like we don't. There's nothing about that image that we like. Is it really? Is it shocking that he was shocked to discover a dead body?
Right. I see your point. It's already covered in the narrative. It becomes duplicitous. You're
Yeah.
duplicating something that's already been established.
Mm.
I like that. Pixel Trader brings up a really good point. It also balances out the thick blacks along the right and the bottom. And that's an excellent call, Pixel. And yeah, if you haven't, go check out Merkmaid over on Fund My Comic. Citizen Ronan says up the bottom panel is Ronnie after her spontaneous trip to Vegas. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move into issue 3, which again now we're playing with yellow in the cover, and of course when you turn it over and you look at the front matter, what do we get? We get yellow, and we're carrying that theme over. Again, I like this. This is just such a nice touch.
Do you want to take a Do you want to take a crack at the pronouncing the editor's name?
The editor, that would be Makovitz. So Makowitz. I'm gonna go with Makowitz.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna go with Makovitz.
Makowitz. Okay, we're right there. I wanted to talk about this panel because of this is the first time we start seeing any kind of card play in it, and I was curious when you saw the hand. Did you have any immediate thoughts?
Okay, my first thought is, are they playing poker? Answer no. Because if you're now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't played a ton of blackjack in a casino, but typically your cards are just face up. There's no point in concealing your cards. You would only do that in poker. My second thought is, those are some cheap looking chips. Like nobody
Yeah.
uses chips that color anymore.
That was kind of my thought. It felt, and this is again, it goes to that they're not on the strip, they're off strip. They're 20 years behind. They're playing at sawdust and peanut shell casinos. They're that far down the social ladder. They're just on the fringes of criminality.
No, see,
And
the presence of blue tells me that these aren't even okay. So typically in a casino, white is $1, red is $5. The next denomination up is 25, and that's typically green. So red, white, and blue is what you would see from a chip set that you got at Walmart, and they're made of plastic. They're not even made of like a clay composite.
okay, so your issue is the coloration of the chips.
Yeah, make them green. Just make them green, and it looks real.
Gotcha. And then arguably we have the both the nicest and nice. It's one of the nicer 16 panel pages I've seen in a long time. It's also one of the ones that irritates me the most. It's a nice progression, but the problem is it's too much. You've got the time progression that's in column A, and then all we get is portraits in column B. And then the portraits are inverted for row 1 between column B and column C, but all the action happens in column D. And to have that way, like it should be interspersed a little bit. Like the action in my mind, I'm okay with row 1 and I'm okay with column A. But column B should be like column B row 2 where it's just his face should be Stan's face and then him throwing a punch, or it's a punch and then Stan's face and then you get the opponent's face, and you intersperse that on down so that it has some variance. This just it feels very, you get progression of time based off of how they're shown getting beaten up, but it's very distracting that the same face has a time progression in the same column.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Do you because this looks like a series of still images from like Rocky.
Yeah.
And Do you think it's successful, or do you think it isn't successful here?
No, this is a miss in regards to the structure of this, and it's a rare miss. It's really funny that this happens at the midway point because it's the only page I have a major structural problem with in the entire book. Like I would just invert images. So if you go down to row 2, just swap column B and column C, and then in row 3 swap column B and column D. And just vary it. Give me some variance, so it's not just a giant bald guy's mug in every panel on down. I need to see a little bit of variance. That I think that would add dynamic. That would add a little bit of dynamic motion to it. And where's the motion happening? Again, we talk about it. Action happens in the gutter. Well, put the action in the gutter then. And the way you put the action in the gutter is how you orient those panels. So orient those panels so that there's action. Because right now, the only action, I read across the page, I read panels 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I want to go down. I want to go down column D, and I shouldn't want to do that. I should zigzag across the page down to the lower corner so I hit the page turn. And in this book, I'm not doing that. I hit a dead end, and then I just carry it down, and it's distracting.
Well, you could reorder these to make it seem like that these two guys are beating the crap out of the ring girl.
You could show it that they're beating the crap out of the ring girl, and she is just holding up numbers, going, "Keep on punching me." And this is what irritates me about this page the most is we next have a montage of Stan's son fighting in an MMA match, and we get this dynamic page which works, and we've got kind of a 2-panel spread that's kind of blended together, and we get some good action, and we get the crowd reaction beneath it. This works much better. You understand what's going on, but it's separated by them bumping fists at the start of the fight, and then boom, he's suplexing them. It's a nice action moment. It's like, man, he understands what he's doing. What the hell was this? And then we move further.
I'm not a big fan of Spank.
I don't mind it because it's the sound of flesh hitting a mat. So you want spunk, kind of like a wet sound of just meat hitting something.
Thwap.
Yeah, thwap maybe. I mean, I don't get too much into the action word. I don't have a problem. It's executed well. I like how it's incorporated within the art. And then we move on and we get some really nice work here. And this is, I thought this is great. And this is a good sense of how you can get away with bringing across meaning very, very subtly with just an art choice. And it's a very low verbose page, but between panels 3 and 5, really, really well done. That just, he goes from the stoic appearance, she makes a follow-up comment, and then he gets the smirk. It's just really, really well done. We don't even need to see the eyes because we've already established the eyes in panel 3. So
do they ever, and I'm okay if they don't. In fact, I would probably prefer it this way, but did they ever explain the scar and I just missed it?
I do not recall them explaining the scar. I think the scar is
just meant to be symbolic of a rough upbringing.
Right. I think it's Lucy's representation of his relationship with Stan. That it's the implication that things weren't easy for him because Stan wasn't around. But then we move into issue 4, and again, now we're playing with kind of a minty green color. And guess what? The front matter carries that over. Why? Because we know what we're doing. And then this is the thing I loved is issue 4. We're past the midpoint, and so we open up with a splash, and we don't just open up with any splash. We open with a party. I really, really liked this, with one major exception. I do not understand why they do this. Why are we bridging the page gap? Because in a floppy this works, but in a trade it doesn't.
In panel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he really looks like Leon Kennedy.
He does. And then we go to this, and again, this is where we start. It's something different. We haven't seen this up to this point in the book. Everything has been very linear and very geometric, and now we're starting to play with orientations. And I found that interesting, even within the context of the story. And orientation, just twisting things just a little bit. We're taking everything that you've known up to this point. We're going to turn it just a little bit on an angle just to mess with your head as far as what's going on. It works, but I don't think it's as effective as Panosian wanted it to be within the context of the dialogue. And I think part of it is in response to the dialogue, because in panel 2, there's just a little too much for what we want to affect here with the reader.
Now, here's the thing that I don't understand, because I had mentioned the plaid before. If you look at the sleeve in panel 2, it looks like the pattern is oriented in the direction of the object, but it doesn't do that for the plaid. And I know that I'm like really getting into the weeds here.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. That's an interesting call out. I would have to go back and reanalyze the whole book to see if it's consistent within.
Yeah, why don't you do that? We'll wait.
Okay, yeah, let me just spend a couple hours analyzing 6 issues and get back to you. But then we jump back, and again, here, this is another page that I have structural concerns with. He's doing a good job using panels 5, using panel 5 especially as his foundation image, and then he's got panels 1 through 4 as insets above, and then a bunch of panels below. There's way too many panels below. This is an awkward page in structure.
Like the momentum is off.
You're grinding momentum and you're grinding the flow into the dirt by doing this. This could be simplified. If you're going to do a 4 top inset above a stretched image, then do a 4 top below. By doing 8 below, it drags it out, and it's not. I don't think it works. I don't think it effectively does what he's trying to do, and there's not enough dialogue that it matters. If that makes sense.
No, it does.
And then we go, and then again, irritation. Look, it's almost like we don't know what we're doing. But hey, then we're going to remind you we know exactly what we're doing with a beautiful 2-page spread where we do one thing really well with the panel 1, the foundational image. And then we've got 3 panels on the left and we've got 3 panels on the right. JP, you already know what I'm going to say. Why are we only using 1 camera angle?
Yeah. And
like there's no reason here to use just the straight on camera angle for these shots. Again, go back to Wally Wood's 22, the 20 panels that always work. Make this interesting.
Yeah.
And I understand it's hard, but man, if you go from like a worm's eye view to a Dutch angle to an over the shoulder, do something so that these 6 panels don't just feel like like what they do, which is it feels like a video dating video, because that's what I've been watching to cut shit for the Wednesday show.
That's number 1. That's a really great car. But also the design of this repair shop would have been another opportunity to reinforce pre-heyday Vegas. The sign is too modern, and they could have done a lot more with making it look like a really out of service station. Like just putting 3 barrels there isn't enough. You need like some rusted, Exxon signs or something.
Right, a little bit more of a detritus about the ground about it.
Yeah.
And Citizen Ronan mentions that the auto repair sign is using the Iron Maiden lettering, which is a good call, man. I did not catch that.
Maybe like an old style like gasoline pump that's clearly it hasn't been in service in a decade.
Yep. No, I think something like that in the foreground might have added to this just a little bit. And I think that's a good call. And then we get another spread in this book. I'm off. We were here, and then we go to this. Sorry. Again, we get a very busy page, and it's okay. But again, it's just I feel like we're in the midst of a story, and Panosian's kind of struggling. And at this point, I start to wonder: should this maybe have just been 5 issues upon completing it rather than the 6? That was my thought. But then he redeems himself with something like this, which are the fight sequences, which I talked about earlier. And the fight sequences, the boxing sequences in this are absolutely gorgeous. The action sequences are awesome. There's no doubt that the action's happening in the gutter. You feel weight for every punch that's kind of suggested to be thrown. It's all right there. What were your thoughts on that, JP?
Yeah, I mean, sorry to constantly be referring back to Rocky, but like if I'm looking at a particular panel and I can think of exactly what point in a Rocky movie it looks like panel 3 looks a lot like the third or fourth round in Rocky 4 when Drago is just punishing Rocky with jabs. And the way the mist of sweat flies backwards with each one, like that little touch there, like you wouldn't even need the thwud there because it's done so well.
Right. And I think that's where it comes in that you can tell that Panosian spent some time in a gym and he spent some time around a boxing ring, and whether I don't even know if he was a Golden Gloves guy or just a fan, but you can tell he saw boxing, he saw the effects of the punches thrown, and the dynamic nature of the motion and the action comes across in these pages. And I think that is going back to that page that I had a problem with, where you have immediately following it the action of the MMA of the sun, suplexing the guy. You get a sense of weight and you get a sense of volume, but you didn't get it in the preceding page. But then here we have that weight, we have that volume. You get the sense of excitement, you get the sense of action. Where was that previously? And that's where I think this would almost be better as 5 issues at this point. It's still a great series. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still awesome. I'm being extraordinarily critical here because it's being executed at such a high level. Like 90% of the time when it's one of those where your efficiency is 90%, but then you hit a couple pages where it's like 75, which normally would be phenomenal for most books, but you expect more. And you're like, why are you still not at 90? And then to carry it on, I mean, we've got a whole other fight sequence here, which again is fantastic, right down to the inset panels of the faces, where you're getting the individual emotional reaction, which really works. And again, we're using the black to delineate, but also we've got that really, really thin white gutter line down there at the bottom that breaks those 2 inset panels away from that bottom of the page. Just really, really well done. This is where, when you're using if you're going to use white, if you're going to use black, understand how it contrasts with the page and execute at that high level. He's doing that right here. And it's an excellent example of everything we talked about last week with Howard Chaykin, or, previously 5 weeks ago when we were talking about Clay on Legends of the Dark Knight. This is a really good example of where both of those books could have succeeded. And then where does this all culminate? This culminates in this beautiful 2-page spread, which would never work in a trade because you're going to lose a bunch of stuff down the middle. But my God, absolutely epic action sequence. A little cluttered, but man, does it work.
Sorry, I was bisecting it with my hand to see what would come up where.
Yeah, you're basically losing a little bit in the middle. Nothing phenomenal, nothing great, but it would take a little bit away from it.
Yeah, everything that's important is visible.
Right. And then we move into issue 5, which now our theme color is yellow, and again that carries forward into the front matter. And then we do a callback, and again this is a further callback than the other callback. So now we're more into the gray spectrum. Well, before we were sepia, now we've given way to tan, and we're just kind of going gray and black. Other than the one important factor throughout this entire book, which is money. And the money is green, because money always has value no matter where it occurs in time. And then we move forward and we're back in the reality. And now we're playing again. We're using that stacked panel concept, and we're playing here with a 12 grid, but we're using meter. Jesus. We're using meter and metric very, very well to delineate story. And if you look at the front, we're consistent, we're balanced in those middle in panels 3, 4, 5, 6. But in panels 7, 8, 9, and 10, what do we have? We're building to a crescendo. It's an interesting option to go up from those panels rather than down, but it works. Because normally you'd want to go down to the page turn, but here it works. We're going to go up to the page turn. You're going to turn the page and you get the reaction. And eventually it leads up to the next fight. And you get, this is a beautiful layered shot. I love this double page spread.
Yep. Sorry, I don't really have anything to add here.
No, absolutely. That's absolutely fine. But really, really well done. Very well executed. The only thing I would say is their fists not meeting in the exact middle is just a little irksome, but otherwise perfectly executed page. And then we move into the final issue, and our theme is red. And of course, the front matter gets the theme of red. And then we move into the first page we get is now we're having the father and son. There's a little bit of bonding. It's a nice moment. I really liked them being giants amongst the scene around them. I thought that was really cool, man, because here's a dad and his son talking, and it's everything is small over their conversation. Their conversation is greater than the whole. And then it shrinks down and it goes down to their persona, and they're talking man to man, and they hit something. And then we get the chapter 1 of the last chapter, and we're the last episode, and we're going to resurrection. And again, what are we playing with? We're playing with breaking gutter, because we've got the front wheel of the car breaking that bottom gutter. And then what are we also doing in panels 2, 3, 4, and 5? We're building crescendo, and then we stabilize. So we're doing the same things that we did earlier to build that action sense, but we're starting to table off a little bit, and we're starting to wind it down. And I thought that was really well done. Like, he understands he's at the end of his story. He's got to start ramping down expectations where he's been ramping them up to this point. Really liked that. We move into a panel like this, and again, excellent use of pacing. Excellent use of dialogue. He understands what he's doing, understands where the pauses are. It's absolute perfect, almost perfect execution. And then we get into the finale, and we get this. And this is like Frank Miller-esque almost in how we're condensing a shit ton of information into one page. And God damn it, I don't know how, but not only does it work, but you get the Miller influence, and it's beautiful. I love it. I shouldn't like it because it contrasts with everything we've seen before this, but it works, man. What were your thoughts?
Just to kind of back up, I had a question because I wasn't sure if this was something that went over my head or if there was an incongruity. You good? Okay, well, we lost all this. So earlier, like in the conversation right before this, he says that he is going to have this fight for a cable TV show, and they found an opponent for him that he's easily going to beat and is Asian. And then the fight happens, and he is very much not Asian.
I didn't understand that either.
Okay. Because if it's a different fighter, then why would the odds be in his favor?
Don't understand that either.
Okay.
I think there's a little bit of I get a little lost in the action on this one towards the end, but I think there's a little bit of shifting that's going on. I think I missed something at some point where I'm sure it's explained, because otherwise it's just too glaring of an issue. So I always assume I'm just missing something.
Okay.
But so that happens, and then we get the finalization of the story, and I'm not going to ruin it for you. You all need to go out and read it. I do give this my full recommendation. But at the end of this, right before the end of this sequence, we get my favorite page in the entire book, which is simply this. And it is just absolutely, it's my favorite page in the entire series. And it's just the cigarette that was flicked falling, trailing with smoke. It's a beautiful segue, and I think it's a great way to end us talking about this book. So, in my opinion, this is a recommend. Again, 6 issues, Dan Panosian. I think it's a highly, highly executed work. and I think also a very brave choice. This is not your standard fare. This is what I wish more. It kind of hits on a lot of the stuff that I wish more comics would cover. I'm not a big cape shit guy. I like stories like this that kind of delve into that aspect of society that's between the low rent scum and the normal average Joe. And that's where this book exists. And I think that's a lot of fun to explore that world, because I think everybody can relate, because everybody's been in a dive bar where you've touched this world at some point in your life, where you've met somebody that exists in this world. This is very real for the vast majority of people. I think if you go to the next level and you start talking about, billionaires and trillionaires like Lex Luthor Corp and, all that, people can't relate to that world. But this is a very grounded story that there are people in this story that you've met at some point in your life, because these people exist on the fringes of everybody's life. And I think that's the strongest point of it.
The cigarette smoke is starting to spell out the name of the book.
It is. That's a good call. I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really elaborate too hard on the problems that I had with this book, because for me, it was really just character arcs. I just didn't think that they went anywhere meaningful or satisfying, even as a kind of misanthropic anti-hero story. It just didn't do much for me in that department. Slot. I mean, the other major problem I had is I had a problem not just with the title, but with a lot of the subtitles. It didn't seem like there was a lot of thought put into them, and it's such an opportunity. And with each chapter, every chapter title just said more and more nothing for me. And so I just thought there was a lot of missed opportunities here. But that's just me. I'm somebody who focuses on character and story, so your mileage may vary.
Gotcha, man. No, and I think that's fair. I don't think this is a book for everybody. There are books that are for everybody. I still think Filakov's Tumor is probably the best book that I think everybody can agree on. If you're a true comic fan, if you like good sequential art and you like good story, I think this is one of those that I think the story has to resonate with you as much as it resonated with Panosian to really hit the ground that it's trying to cover. Because I think it does come across as an extraordinarily personal story. And I think if your personal life doesn't touch the world that Panosian's kind of diving into, even in a slightest bit, I don't think you can relate to it as much. I think this is a book that I think it does everything really, really well. I don't think it's great on every level, but I think it executes at a really high level. And Kayla says that I should have that scene framed. I will probably get that printed on a t-shirt at some point, just because it is a phenomenal image. And yes, I am a nicotine fiend. God damn it. Citizen Ronan says, I enjoyed the drawing, kind of Mad Mag, Anglo Torres, Mort Duckersberg. But I really didn't like the coloring for the most part. Very muddy to the eye. It does have a little bit of the muddy coloring. With regards to that, I will say it is a little bit of a student of its time, in that this is a 2007-2018 book, and that was just kind of the general style of the time. He's also coming from the Panosian was coming from the advertising world, so you get that. It doesn't have the richness of like Canary. We talked about Canary last year, and with Scott Snyder, that had a much more light, airy tone to it. And I think
it's a totally different setting.
That was the old West. This is the new West. But I think this could have used a little bit of a blend of those two styles a little bit more. I think he might have gone a little heavy-handed. But Tank Ferret says, just popping on to smash that like button. Well, thank you very much, sir. Always appreciate it. And then he's saying good night all. Well, good night, Ferret, man. Hope you have a good one. And Awesome One says, we won. Indeed, we did. But yeah, overall, this is a great book. I will be dropping the link to the chat in the description if you'd like to join us for the back room. Otherwise, last words, JP.
Let's gamble.
Let's gamble.
There you go. Take it from Ronnie Radio himself. And with that, hope you all have a blessed evening, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good one, all.
This is blood for blood and by the gallons. This is the old days and the bad days, the all or nothing days. They're back. There's no choices left.
Try some new Minute Maid orange tangerine. It's got calcium.
Then I'm not drinking it.
Oh, no, it's sweet. You'll like it.
I don't believe you.
Well, then who would you believe?
I don't know, Robert Loggia? Whoa, Robert Loggia!
Billy, your mother's right. New Minute Maid orange tangerine tastes great. It's got as much calcium as milk.
If you say so, Mr. Loggia.
Yeah.
This is great.
Enjoy your breakfast.
New Minute Maid orange tangerine.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.